Hello everyone, ResetBomb88 here, and I just wanted to preface this video with an apology for not uploading very often this year. I suppose it doesn't matter too much considering I don't upload very often in general, but, still feel kind of bad about it. But anyway, onto the topic of the video. As of me recording this right now, it's New Year's Eve, and I thought it would be a fun way to end the year by reminiscing and talking about all the games I've played this year. Talk about what I liked, maybe some things that I weren't as fond of, and maybe even rank them all at the end, who knows. So, yeah. Without further ado, here are ResetBomb88's Games of 2023. Let's start off with the first game I played this year, which just so happens to be Yep, that's right. The first game I completed this year was Persona 4 Golden. Having experienced it for myself now, I can absolutely see why it's some people's favorite in the series. Everything about it is just great. The main cast is amazing, the social links are pretty good, and the main story is intriguing and will keep you hooked. On top of that, the classic Hoshino-era gameplay shines through like usual, being just as fun as it was in Royal. This is all without mentioning the game's aesthetics, by the way, which are absolutely phenomenal. Despite being based on a PS2 game, I still think Golden holds up visually really well to this day. It just shows that art direction is the most important thing. And of course, being a Persona game, it's got a boppin' soundtrack. Tracks like Heaven, which is the best in the game by the way, Heartbeat Heartbreak, Snowflakes, the first Sagiri fight theme, and the Ame no Sagiri fight theme all go super hard, and I still listen to some of them to this day. Overall, Golden is a fantastic game that I would absolutely recommend. It's one that I've played multiple times, which I absolutely intend on doing. I wasn't able to polish off all the trophies in my first playthrough, so I'm going to be going through a second playthrough pretty soon to earn that platinum. Overall, goated game, go play it. Moving on to another game in no particular order, we have...
You shall engage the enemy in his own mentality. You shall chase his dreams. You shall fight his demons. You shall live his nightmares. And those of you who fight well, you will find yourselves on the path to becoming international secret agents. In other words, Psychonauts!
Psychonauts is a very unique game. From its art direction, to its story, to its level design, unique is the best word for all of it. There's not quite anything like it. For example, in other 3D platformers, you just go to a place in universe and that's where the level would be. Whereas in Psychonauts, you go into the minds of other characters and that's where most of the levels take place. And it leads to some really strange and surreal, but also really cool levels. Overall though, the game's really good aside from a couple issues that I have with it. It's got that early 2000s jank where like the camera can be frustrating and like some jumps and you gotta kind of guess where you're supposed to go because like it's a little bit hard to guess, hard to gauge, but it's pretty good for the most part. The only real issue I have with it is the final level, because like holy shit, if you've finished Psychonauts, you understand the pain that is the final level. Half escort mission, half gauntlet. It was hellish, but I gotta say, it was worth it in the end. It was a very cool game. I've never played anything like it before. I just gotta get around to finishing the second game, so hopefully I can have that same passion for the series that one of my other friends has. So if you're watching this, then you know who you are. Thank you. Next up is a small little indie game with a small little audience called... Dustin Elysian Tale is a game that I started way back in 2016 as a milk-drinking toddler. Now, a big boy wearing big boy pants, I've finished the game 7 years later. And one thing that I didn't think about until now is holy shit, this game is over 10 years old. What? I ain't never knew this. Text your mom this. In all seriousness though, I'm glad I picked this game back up again. I liked it. It was a really good time. The game's writing is pretty decent. There's some plot points that you can see coming, but there's others that you won't see from a mile away. Also, there's a little aged humor since the game came out in 2012, but that's not a major complaint. There's only 1 or 2 bits that feel dated. Overall, the game's writing is a pretty good mixed bag, with more hits than misses. The game's a hack-and-slash Metroidvania, of which I don't have much experience in either genre. The only real experience I have is Castle Crashers, and that was more hack-and-slash than Metroidvania. Regardless, I think I'll try to explore more Metroidvanias now that I've experienced this game. I love coming back to old areas with new abilities that opens new pathways. I've always heard that was a lot of fun, but didn't realize how much fun it was until recently. It's something that I'll definitely be looking forward to when I eventually get around to the Ori games. The hack-and-slash part's really fun too. You've got ground moves, aerial moves, and ranged attacks from Dust's companion Fidget. It's really fun once you're able to learn the game and be able to whittle huge groups of enemies down to the last few, especially when you know the infinite loop that basically wins you every fight. I gotta say, it's really handy for some of those bosses. Aesthetically, the game is just gorgeous. Everything's been handcrafted in 2D, and you can tell that a lot of care was put into them. The backgrounds were hand-painted and the animations were hand-drawn, and everything's just so smooth and so beautiful. Musically, I have less to gush about. Most of it's just atmospheric music that kind of fits the mood of the area you're in, so there's no real headbangers in there. The map theme, while not a headbanger, is one that stands out though. It's a very serene piece that I find quite soothing. Overall though, Dust and Elysian Tail is a pretty good game, one that deserves a lot more recognition than it gets. Next up is a cult classic that well deserves its cult.
Hey, top time had to go. My time had to go.
Everything about Mad Rat Dead is just a treat. From its gameplay, to its writing, to its aesthetics, everything is just so stylish and cool. For those of you who don't know, Mad Rat Dead is a 2020 rhythm platform game developed by Nippon Ichi Software. In it, you play as the titular Mad Rat, who is killed in a lab experiment. Upon his death, he gets visited by the Rat God, who gives him 24 hours to relive his final day. As such, he chooses to spend his final day getting revenge on the human that killed him. Since I've already talked about how the game starts, I might as well talk about its writing. It starts off really simple, but as it goes, it develops a really profound theme about life and death, not dissimilar to another game that I played this year. That's all I'll mention for now, since it is best to go into this game blind. As I mentioned before, the game's a rhythm platformer. As such, you have a dash, a jump, a homing attack, and a charge, which lets you charge up for longer dashes and higher jumps. As to be expected for a rhythm platformer, the game starts off really simple, but levels get more and more complex as the time goes on. I've gotta say, having platinumed the game, it feels really good to learn the game. Being able to clear through levels with ease, especially if you've struggled with them before, feels so satisfying. I can't put it into words enough. The game's aesthetics are really cool as well. Everything's really stylized and interesting, and not to mention all the characters move to the beat. It's a really cool touch that I really like. Being a rhythm game, the soundtrack is absolutely fantastic. It's probably my favorite part of the game. You can listen to most tracks without being spoiled, so go ahead and do it. The next time the game goes on sale, you should definitely pick it up. It's a really fun game, although I wouldn't say it's worth its initial $40. $20 is just fine considering how short it is. The last 2 games I've talked about have been pretty underground, but everybody knows the next game I'm going to be talking about.
Oh my god, it's a bird, it's a plane! No, it's Spider-Man!
Spider-Man 2018 is a pretty good game, although a lot of people have talked about it, so I don't think there's much I can bring new to the table. But still, for the sake of fairness, I'll run through with the little criteria I've developed over the course of the video. Writing-wise, it's pretty good. It combines a lot of aspects of the Spider-Man comics into one nice little universe. I've got a friend who's really big into the Spider-Man, so I feel like he appreciated this game more than I did. That being said, I didn't get as much out of the story as I would have liked, but I'm pretty sure that's because I knew most of the story beats going in. Gameplay is probably where this game shines the best. Combat is simple, but flashy enough to keep things fun, and swinging around the city is probably the best part of the game. It feels really nice to pull off tricky swings and getting around corners and whatnot. The web slinging feels really good. It was my favorite part of the game. Another area this game shines in is collectibles. There's a lot to do and a lot to find, and I gotta say, it pads out the time pretty well. A good chunk of my gameplay with time was just swinging around the city looking for things. And I love some of the suits that you can unlock with these collectibles as well. The Black Cat suit is one of my favorites, but I love the vintage comic suit more. I'm a little biased because of the cell shading, though. Aesthetically, there's not much to talk about. I mean, graphically the game's really impressive, but from an art direction, it's just, it's alright. Well, that's kinda mean, I'm sorry. It's just that I have a stronger bias towards things that are more cartoony and expressive, so realism isn't really my favorite, Nothing wrong with it, though. And the music's alright, I guess. Nothing really to talk about. So yeah, overall, Spider-Man 2018 is a pretty good game. It sells on the PlayStation Store with all of its DLC for like $30, I think, so go get it if you're a big fan of Spider-Man. Alright, final game of the year. Can you guess what it was? Yeah, we started the list with Persona and we're ending the list with Persona, so let's get into it. I'll try and keep this short since I do have a full review of Persona 3 Portable planned, but that probably won't be for a while. Anyways, Persona 3 Portable is a very tricky game. There are some aspects of it that shine beautifully and others that just don't. Let's start off with what doesn't work as well. The section of the game that I like to call daily life, where going to school and hanging out with your social links, works just fine. It's the Deadly Life sections where you go to Tartarus that aren't as fun. Tartarus gets very repetitive very quickly, so spending half of your game there just isn't very fun. Aesthetically, or at least visually, the game looks a bit off as well. Some textures were updated using AI, so they kinda smudge together, but the rest of the textures look just fine. Same goes with the models. Most of them look okay, but there's a couple that could use a little work. Moving on to what does work and sticking with aesthetics, the game has fantastic music. And I've gotta say, despite not having finished the FemC route, I might think it has better tracks than the MC route, although it's just my opinion. And everybody already knows, but the best part of Portable is its writing, it's so goated. As for if I'd recommend it, I'd say only for the hardcore Persona fans. If you're a casual or trying to get into the series, I'd just wait for the remake, which is coming out very soon. Alright, those are my games of 2023. Since we've still got a little time, why don't we rank them all? Alright, in last place we have Psychonauts. Not a bad game by any means, just one that I couldn't get myself into. Tied for 4th place is Dust and Elysian Tail and Spider-Man 2018. Dust and Elysian Tail was a very good game, but a very short game, and Spider-Man was also pretty good, but I couldn't get engrossed in the story as much as I would have liked to. 3rd place goes to Persona 3 Portable. Fantastic writing and an amazing soundtrack, but frustrating gameplay. 2nd place goes to Mad Rat Dead. Fantastic soundtrack, great writing, and fun gameplay, but not enough to be number 1. That all means that number 1 goes to Persona 4 Golden. Great gameplay, amazing music and writing, and of course, the signature Persona flair. With that, I've been ResetBomb88, and I hope to see you in the next video.